Greetings, Toffees. Welcome back to another episode of the Blue Frontier. We've got the full trio today after Everton with a very, very frustrating 1-1 draw at the Hill Dickinson Stadium against bottom-of-the-table Wolves. Michael Keane's precise finish in the first half put us ahead, but a bit of stagnation after the break opened the door for Shan Khan's real favorite team to take advantage, which they did. Before we get into dissecting the match, just a reminder that if you enjoy the show, leave us a rating and review on your podcast platform of choice. Like, subscribe to this video if you're watching on YouTube, and find all the links to our content and socials in the description, including our Discord, where our summary quote of the day comes from. And to go over it, I'll hand it off to Ryan.
My summary quote is from Second City, St. Louisan. VAR nonsense aside, today is a clear example of why you must always take your chances when they come. Everton had numerous chances to lock the game away in the first half, and they didn't. So the reason why I bring this up is because I think there was a pretty interesting dialogue after this one. And when you see something like this happen, it's easy to ask the question, what the heck happened, right? And that's kind of our talking point number one. And I think that is the talking point of the match, which collapsed in many ways. I think Michael Greenhouse says, all too predictable, unfortunately, is we have no intention of ever trying to control/squeeze a game with the ball when in a winning game state. And these types of performances results will continue until we learn to do so. I said, if Everton show any ability to keep the ball, Wolves' extra man in the midfield and two center forward setup is pointless. So the tactics could have been rendered somewhat obsolete, because the theory is when you have the ball, you can kind of dictate the way things are. But Michael's response to that was that, or the ability to put serious, effective pressure on the ball when the opposition's defense goalkeeper has possession. And his comment is, I understand we're stretched, but the approach tonight was bad, so have zero sympathy for them. And I agree. I don't know what we were really deciding to do, but I will volunteer this. I think even with that personnel, I think there's good enough personnel in this team at times with the right lineup where you can get on the ball. You can, and today, are you telling me that midfield can't possess the ball a little bit more? So is the style of play somewhat limiting? Is that some of the problems here, or should we just wait until we get in the match and talk and we just didn't tactic them?
Well, I think that the tactics play a role, but I also think it's just kind of a fundamental limitation of even in some ways a full-strength Everton team, much less this very thin one that we're currently dealing with, and partially on the manager as well. Like, when you have the lead, you need to control space and see results out. And there's different ways you can do that, but when you let the opposition just... And Wolves weren't even that great. I mean, they got the goal in a moment where our defensive line just sort of gave up a run through. And so with this current team, I think, and the manager, you're just not going to see the type of dominance from a winning position that we might want to see.
Well, I'll ask this question then, too. Is it less that and more that, okay, we had one bad moment and one, very curious kind of matchup and setup where we made one bad individual play. We had a big breakdown. Even after that, we were trying to get on the front foot. We were trying to get on the ball. Weren't necessarily all that effective. And then we just ran out of runway because of the red cards. I mean, maybe we're making too big a deal of this. I don't know. I feel like there's some truth to this, though.
I kind of push back a little bit on this limited personnel, especially when you look at, I just thought today would have been a perfect match to put Tyler Dibling in. When you look at the Wolves, like left back, right back, it's not a good defensive kind of unit, right? When you look at just the amount of goals that they've let in, and even recent form has been good to them, but they're definitely a team that still is weak. And so when you look at even somebody like Jack Grealish isn't taking guys on per se. Like, he's just kind of holding the ball, and they're afraid to go in on him, and I think he's banking on most of those kind of defenders trying to kind of lunge at him so he can get past them. But when he's not really getting past other guys too, it kind of just forces the ball to go left or right, and we're not putting enough quality into the box, right? I just felt like from a performance standpoint, it was lackluster, and then you look at just the personnel standpoint, we're not putting the guys out there that can kind of really threaten them, so we can get some more of that space for some of the other guys like Harrison, Garner, that can kind of be confident with the ball and put it in good space.
I'll say this too, having a Dibling out there, he can be very measured at times, but he is a threat to beat you. Dwight is not. There's not from the right side. Dibling can beat players. I think Bueno in particular was dropping into the midfield. Part of the problem was when they were stacking the midfield, he was part of that midfield stack. Well, now if you got a guy that can kind of play behind him, much in the same way as like Mane kept Jake back, same type of situation. With Dwight, I mean, you can recover. It's not a big deal. There's no real fear of that. I think you have an interesting angle.
Just to kind of add on to that, in this small stretch of games, there have been way too many times where some of the guys won't even look forward. Jake is a good example of that. Dwight's another example of that, where they're not going to even look to see what's ahead. They'll just basically go backwards and then we'll start again, which I can understand from
not be on the pitch, right?
Yeah, I can understand from a possession standpoint. Sure, you want to reset and that's fine, but you're sometimes leaving some really good opportunities on the table when you do see them kind of look forward. There's wide open space, right? And we're missing those chances. And for a team right now that is just not as good as we should be on the pitch, like we're just continually shooting ourselves in the foot with these type of moments.
Easy to have your center back pairing play higher and your back line play higher if there's no threat to put it over the top.
Want to move on to, I think, what was one of the few bright spots both pre and post match, and that is the full debut of Harrison Armstrong, who was of course recalled from his loan. We saw him given the start at the 10. I certainly didn't expect him to throw Armstrong straight in after what was a good substitute appearance at the tail end of the Brentford match. But what did we make of Armstrong's performance? I think for me, thought he started really well. You can see that quality on the ball, which we saw glimpses of in preseason, is still there. He certainly has it, but despite the really chaotic first half where he looked positive as things sort of wore on, he was, of course, eventually subbed off. And in the second half, I think, much like the rest of the team, struggled to really make an impact.
I think what I appreciate about Armstrong is kind of relevant to our first conversation, right? Of somebody that's like looking to drive forward, looking to be aggressive with the ball, just kind of doesn't have this like thought in the back of his head where he almost needs to go backwards, right? And that, of course, comes with how confident he is from his loan spell, I imagine, and just and you just don't see it on certain guys in the team, right? And it's not to say that they're playing badly, but I think I really appreciated that from him today, even though there were moments where it wasn't working out, right? You can live with that. Like, I think as long as he's trying to kind of, drive forward, make the right pass, and you saw that plenty of times, like you mentioned today, James. So I thought it was a good debut, and I was happy that he got the opportunity. It's just nice also, too, you recall a guy from loan, you actually use him. Right. And so from a David Moyes perspective, he got a lot wrong today. I don't think he got that wrong. I think it was good to put him out there.
He's a different level in terms of ball control and tempo. I mean, he can go forward, he can go back. I mean, he's a little right-footed maybe for a midfielder. I think that will come in time. It's easy to forget how young he is because of how composed he is. He's gotten stronger, too. Like, that's the one thing I noticed in the championship. Other than the first touch or two, I mean, he was on it, from the get-go. And when I think about ball control, like, I would have no concerns with him on the ball. In fact, I would argue he was maybe our cleanest guy. In fact, I would even argue this. As good as James Garner can be on the ball with his right foot in terms of ball striking, I think Harrison Armstrong in terms of ball control and moving the ball and just agility with the ball. One point he was dancing kind of through in the 18 is at another level than even James Garner. I mean, you look at this kid, and if he continued to develop kind of his defensive positioning, he could be one of those on-ball controlling 6'8", probably an 8. I would also argue this, though. What is the point of Merlin Rolle? I mean, it's right. It's like the same guy, just maybe not as physically mature. But
and this is the guy who we sent Armstrong out on loan because we brought Rolle in. So it's very curious that he is then kind of basically effectively dropped in favor of the recalled Armstrong. I don't know what that says about Rolle's future. But again, encouraging debut from Armstrong. And what I like about him so much is like receiving the ball, dropping to receive the ball back to goal, turning and driving. Even for an 18-year-old, the skill set with the ball at his feet is remarkable. So.
And with judgment. It's not like Tim.
Right.
Just Tim does it no matter what.
Right.
You can have the Great Wall of China behind him. He would just turn around and try and go through the brick.
There's just a feel for the game at his age that you don't often see that I think is just what makes him so promising of a player.
Yeah, he's definitely special. A group that is not special and hasn't been for weeks, though, are the center backs. Sorry, that was probably one of my better transitions. I'm happy to take claim for that one. We've all been complaining about this a bit. I would argue that Shan may be more angry about this than anyone, or at least picked up on this much earlier. This Keane-Tark combo just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't work.
I mean, I understand David Moyes, and it's like we know him as a manager. He values experience. I think he values that physicality, right? And I think that's kind of the only straw that I can grasp on why Tarkowski continues to play, right? It's almost like an afterthought because it's the only person that seems to have any sort of ability to be moved into the bench is Michael Keane, right? And he decided to move himself to the bench today, and of course we'll get to kind of that whole situation. But it's
you're splitting hairs here.
There's so much evidence now. Like, it's just like I don't understand it. And from David Moyes' perspective, anytime you've put Jake at center back, you've seen a better product, right? And it's like, I understand you might not value Nathan Patterson and whatnot, but it's like, you are playing him, right? You played him against Nottingham Forest. He came on today, of course, in extenuating circumstances, did fine, right? Like, and so it's just, to me, it is just hurting so many other kind of pieces of the team. And these are just going to be the conversations we continue to have, because we're going to continue to let goals like this in. And you're just going to also start to see Jake make mistakes like today, because he's continually, not understanding what position he needs to play when it comes to those specific spots in the field.
I do think it's interesting that Moyes was basically, he had stumbled on a bit of a solution against Forest when he was forced to play Jake O'Brien next to Tark. And then he immediately went away from that once the options were available for him to go back to what had not really been working up to this point. And now it seems like his hand is going to be forced again because, of course, as you alluded to, Shan, Michael Keane gets the red card, which we'll talk about in just a moment, as well as Jack Grealish. So we're now without Michael Keane for at least 3 games, assuming the suspension is upheld. I would think they might appeal it. But that maybe it's a good thing that Michael Keane gets suspended, because there's the opportunity now for Jake to go back alongside Tark and for someone to play right back. Seems like it will potentially be Patterson.
It's absolutely, I think, a good thing in that particular regard. I want to see, like I've said, I want these players to develop. I want to see Jake play center back, man. I'm tired of this. Granted, watch JB gets healthy and he goes to the bench for Tark. Or we buy a right back and he goes to the bench. It doesn't matter. That's whatever. I'm happy he played Harrison Armstrong today. He's young. There you go. Look, no matter what, we'll talk and get into the details of the red cards. We talk about wanting to play experienced people that show a lot of composure. I think it was a little bit harsh. But anyway, what I think is interesting is that Wolves have been playing a little bit better, but there is some good personnel on this Wolves team. I think they've got some serious flaws and everything. Curious the way they've been using players. I thought they were much better in the second half. Sean, since this is your favorite team, you probably know more about them than anyone. Maybe if you can walk our listeners through the lineup and some of the capabilities that Wolves have.
Sure. As just everyone seems to label me as a Wolves aficionado, I will do my best. So they've actually been on a good run of form. As Ryan and I mentioned in Thoughts and Prayers, they doubled their point total at the beginning of the new year against West Ham. So once again, thoughts and prayers to them, just because they need as much as they can get. But they keep the same formation, that has kind of worked for them the last two match fixtures. Of course, they got a draw against United, right? So they're on decent kind of form. And so you look at the back three, I think the big benefit for them is Rob Edwards reinserting Santi Bueno and taking out Toti Gomez. I just think he's been kind of one of their steadier center backs over his time at the club. And you put him against Ladislav Krejci, who I really like, actually. I think as dramatic as he was today, he's still a pretty solid player. And Mascara, who is a massive baby, but at the same time, he has definitely some skill. And then the wingbacks, of course, and you look at Jackson Tachua, not the greatest defensive right back, but he's incredibly fast, right? So it's just one of those guys that you really have to watch out for. Hugo Bueno, of course, pretty decent quality, but that midfield is kind of what has been the topic, just with Andre being on the bench. But I think we'll get to it. I think Rob Edwards actually kind of used the lineup pretty shrewdly today. So you have John Arias.
Why is that midfield not better, Sean?
I don't know. You have 2 Brazil internationals. We've talked about it even last year with Cunha. So it's just like they have quality. It's just kind of one of those situations where you just wonder why they've been as bad as they have. And then you start to kind of see, okay, form might be creeping up, but a little too late. But Mateus Mane is the guy that I think, how was he not playing earlier in the season is kind of appalling. This guy has been lights out. And so credit to Rob Edwards. No, he's got a lot of criticism, but I think he started to find a lineup that's actually just going to be competitive in games, right? We'll see if they get points enough to just make it interesting. But João Gomez, of course, really good ball winner, really good on the ball. He's just a little bit out of position at times, so you can kind of see where the empty spots happen. And so that's where him and Andre as a partnership, you'd expect more. But the interesting thing now, what they've done is Tolu Dugadare is kind of the starting forward next to Hwang. Jurgen Strand-Larsen probably off this window. It just makes the most sense, right? If you're going to get relegated, try to get somebody at the peak of the value. But he's been really solid for them. So it's like, and he's a handful. He's a big, strong striker. And so somebody that is, I think, pretty technically underrated, but at the same time, I think is enough, right, to kind of work in that style. So it's a team that I was a little bit nervy for from an Everton point of view. I don't think they would have threatened much outside of Mane, and of course it ended up happening. But a team that by far this, if we just had any sort of level of performance, we should have won.
We talked about the Everton lineup a little bit, but again, the main change being that Harrison Armstrong comes into the midfield and Tyler Dibling dropped after being yanked at halftime. I don't know what sort of compromising photographs Dwight McNeil has of David Moyes that's keeping him in this team, but it continues to make so little sense. What I also just find so bizarre about it is he was effectively at the very end of the bench for so much of the season, and now he's undroppable. Obviously, like, a lot of options have evaporated in front of him, so that might be the simple explanation, but it's crazy. So that was the main change. Not a formation that Everton have played against a ton this season, so it'd be interesting to see how Moyes would use the personnel and how Edwards would look to also kind of break through.
And I think there are opportunities, too, for Wolves to hurt us with that formation. But, in the first half, and we'll get into the details of the events in the first half, and, not super eventful other than just an unbelievable finish. You look at they were dropping kind of Hwang back in between the lines a little bit. Bueno would kind of cut into the middle as well. And you look at all the touches there, Krejci, but Gomes was getting on the ball a ton. He had 49 touches in the first half, almost led their team. Mascara, yeah, but Bueno had 34 dropping in the middle. And so they were stacking the midfield, but, and even when you're watching, because Moyes likes to play a lot of man concept stuff in the midfield, at first Harrison Armstrong was a little bit kind of out to lunch, and then he kind of adapted a little bit, dropped back in the midfield. They didn't do a very good job of getting it past those guys. And I do think there was an open guy, a third guy often. Hwang had a great match last match, did not have a good one this match. And so they didn't do a great job of finding him, and they only really found some success until after the halftime. But they really were trying to stack the middle, too, and even outnumber our three. I don't know. Getting into the timeline, shaky at the back early. I'd say the game just didn't start off in a very crisp foot for anyone, I think. And I would almost argue that continued throughout the match. It was not a very clean match.
It was not, Ryan. And I think you kind of alluded to it. With Wolves stacking the midfield so much, it took away any sort of progressive outlet. And so I think the defenders across the board were struggling to try to find the pass to move the ball forward. And as a result, you see some awkwardly weighted passes. Rokadare was throwing himself around pretty early.
There were a lot of battles, for sure.
For sure. Very combative, a lot of turnovers, a lot of attempted dribbles. Tim was in the mix constantly, causing chaos. But neither team was able to get into that great of a flow. That said, it was, for the most part, Everton who created anything of note, and really there were a couple half chances early on, and then it's Michael Keane, who, it's an incredible finish by him, but it's also almost so emblematic of how the game was going that it's the Dwight free kick in, Tim, Tark wins it at the far post, nods it back to Tim, who flubs his shot, and then it's Keane coming in to save the day by, I don't know how he hits this, it's such a tight window, but rockets it into the back of the net. But it's like decent execution, a flubbed opportunity, and then we get a bit of luck in the way the ball rolls, and then one of the best finishers at the club, which I love that the announcers are now like catching on to this fact. Every time Michael Keane scores, it's kind of unbelievable.
This is bar down volley.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
It's an unbelievable finish. Like, as good as any striker finish you will ever see. When he did it, I think everyone was like, oh my heavens. And then almost 10 minutes later, he hits a great header off a free kick that hits off the post. And you're thinking, wow, man, we're all over these guys. This is going great. Sloppy, true, but really Wolves they were progressing the ball very well up the pitch, but when they did, they would just stop kind of at the middle. And that's how it went. Very nice moment in the 33rd, I think.
Yeah, the standing ovation by the Evertonians for Stephen Jones, who tragically passed away at the age of 33. Rest in peace.
Awful.
It was just, but it's nice to see as Everton as a club recognize those sorts of things. So may he rest in peace. And it was a nice moment in tragic circumstances. And then almost again, Everton just a minute later, Garner makes a nice little turn in the penalty area, pushed pretty far forward. He has this shot that saw parries kind of awkwardly. It comes out to Mikalenko, who goes for the full volley, pretty ambitious on his part, but he was looking to take shots today. This one does not go anywhere remotely close. It almost goes perpendicular to the goal and almost goes like out of bounds for a throw. Just a bizarre moment.
I mean, look, when Ghana goes to shoot it, you fear for crowd impacts. When some of these other guys shoot it, you fear for like opposition getting smashed or something. This was just, I mean, Tim
They
shot
should have
maybe
sounded the
worse.
stadium siren after that one.
Yeah,
that was
right.
just as bad as
Operation
it was.
Goodison
Like, that was one of the
safety
worst shots
exercise.
I've seen from an Evertonian. Like, anybody that's played for this club, like even Ghana, I think would be like, making fun of Miko after that one.
You know, the sad part is, though, as sloppy and as ugly as it was, it sounded like the crowd was into it. Like, we were on the
for
front
sure.
foot. I mean, we were creating some chances here, even if it was sloppy. And then kind of near at the end of the first half, finally they create a chance, I guess. It was just Tark giving the ball away again, man. What is going on?
Yeah, it's just, the only opportunities they really had were through our kind of poor giveaways, and this was Tarkowski giving it basically straight to Arokadare. He takes the early shot. Probably could have drove it at goal a little more aggressively, but it goes well wide. Pickford watches it. But just kind of, again, so indicative of how sloppy Everton were.
Can we just not get on the ball? I mean, this goes to the first point,
I
right?
think that's right, though. I think you just struggled. These are not possession-based center backs, and you've got a midfield in James Garner and Tim, who are... Garner's been pretty good on the ball for the most part this season. Armstrong comes in, but still pretty green. Tim is just good at driving the ball forward, but not at that sort of ball retention type game. That's not really what he does. Nevertheless, you get to half and you look at some of the numbers, it's very much all Everton. I mean, we had 0.71 XG. Now, most of that was from set pieces, but that's okay. We'll take that. Set pieces can be effective. 16 touches in the box for Everton to 10. Wolves, 0.07 XG. Created virtually nothing. Everton also in the chaos, coming out the better. 36 duels won to just 25 for Wolves. So all in all, very ugly, but you have to say Everton deserved to be leading at the break.
That's a big duel number. I mean, we were battling more. We clearly seemed like we wanted it, or we were in it more. And Wolves had to make a change at half, and they certainly did, bringing in Andre, which I was a little concerned when I thought that happened because I felt like there was opportunities for them to control the game a little bit more. It didn't happen right away, though. It took them a while to kind of get into it. In fact, I was actually fairly encouraged by the way we were kind of keeping the ball and keeping on them in the first 15 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, it felt like we still, we didn't kind of have that second half, lack of intensity and performance, and it just felt like we were still kind of trying to control the game, trying to, understand that from a game state standpoint that you saw guys being aggressive, and you look at the 58th minute, it could have been a decent chance. Tim wins the ball and drives forward. This is a tough one because he looks right and he sees Dwight, and of course I don't blame him at all for not making that decision. I think from Grealish's standpoint, I think this is an interesting one. I don't blame him for maybe not passing it to Jack, but once again, if you're not going to pass it to Jack, you have to be a lot better when it comes to that specific moment. And we've seen Tim time in and time out just kind of really struggle in those moments where he has to kind of think and dribble at the same time.
Yeah, I thought he did okay in this one because I think Dwight would have been the better pass. But yes, we see it. It's very funny as the game goes on. I mean, I think my comment in the Discord was, does he fade or does his brain malfunction? Or I don't know. He does. And look, the decision-making drives me crazy. It's very high risk at times, but he was effective. Like, I cannot deny that. I mean, he was truly a driving force today for most of the match. I'm not going to give him too much flack when the game state changes that he's not going to suddenly be able to sit deep and pack it in and be positionally aware. And, it's just not him. So credit to him in the three-man kind of midfield with Armstrong playing deeper a little bit at times. I thought he did fairly well. The thing is, we'll start to build into this match at this point, but first 15 minutes was 65% Everton possession, 92% pass completion, 4-0 in dribbles, you know what I mean? So it was still looking good.
As you mentioned those numbers, Ryan, this is the type of play Everton should be looking for from a winning position. Like, control the ball, take the air out of it a little bit, force the opposition to try to run around and pressure you. But this is when Wolves start to kind of grow into the game. And right around the 64th minute, it's João Gomez rinsing Garner with a driving run. The shot forces a diving save from Pickford. And I was starting to feel kind of alarm bells going off in my head. A little bit nervous what would follow, because it felt like we were slipping or they were getting a little bit stronger. Of course, that opportunity for them would be foreshadowing, because just 4 minutes after they had their first really good chance of the game is when Mane finds the equalizer. And it's Strand Larsen, moments after he came on as a substitute, dropping into the middle, into basically the half circle, to receive the ball, turns and plays Mane in, who makes a great run, leaves Tark in the dust, fires a curler past Pickford. You have to say, it's a good goal, but the defense, as Peter Dodds 15 from X said, parted like the Red Sea for Wolves' goal. It was biblical in its awfulness, which I think is just a really beautiful way to describe a very painful moment in this match.
Yeah, it seemed pretty obvious what they were doing, too. They had two center forwards up, stacked to go right at our center backs, and Tark follows his center forward, fine. Doesn't stay on him, kind of gives him some space, allows him to turn. That's a little bit of a mistake, but not the worst thing in the world because he was so deep. But Jake O'Brien just lets Mane just go right by him. I don't understand what the problem is here. I don't know how you can possibly let someone step inside of you. I mean, he's been on that side all match. Nothing really new happened there. But part of the issue is that Keane is also occupied by the other center forward, so he can't drop into space and cover. Not that he's very good at that anyway. And that was it. You know, it's a good finish, clinical. It's a really good run. He has a lot of pace. He makes a good first touch. It's a good pass by Strand Larsen. Not many big center forwards can do what he just did there, but that was it. You know, I mean, I kind of felt like during this half that they were growing a little bit too. They were starting to control the match a little bit better. They were never perfect. They're not a great side, but they have some guys in the midfield that can control the match, and they were starting to dictate things a little bit. Not that much, but it only takes one moment, right? Great center back pairing we have, though.
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, it's just it's a really tough moment for Jake, and I just think really shows the just issues that we're having when you look at just that partnership, and I think a lot of those would get remedied if you put Jake at the position he's supposed to be playing. So. Or
play three center backs, man. Make an adjustment. You see what they're doing, right? So if you're not going to get on the ball and dictate things, this is your example to say, oh, they're going to play two guys up top, two legitimate center forwards, two big guys. Play three in the back. Now at least you're outnumbering them 3-2. If you're not going to get on the ball and not going to dominate, which should be easy now that you got two bigger guys that aren't that quick. I mean, they're not slow or anything, but they're not great pressers. You could get on the ball, dance it around. You could suck Mane in too, play around him, and you could beat these guys. But we seem content to kind of let them dictate things. And I don't know. It's funny, after this, we suddenly had this sense of urgency, but I don't know if we really necessarily had a lot of clarity in terms of what we were trying to do with it.
I think that's exactly right, and I think really that's been a pretty consistent critique of Moyes from us and other Evertonians, is the lack of proactivity. You have almost a 10-minute period where Wolves are growing in. They make a tactical change. You don't react. They make another one. You still don't react. Then you're punished for it, and all of a sudden, okay, well, now we come alive and we wake up, and we're finally moving the ball to kind of open things up. It's Mykolenko and Grealish going 1-2. It goes back to Mykolenko, who, Shan, I think you said he might have had one of the worst shots ever earlier in the match. This wasn't even a shot because he whiffs completely, and he manages to hit it on the second chance and wins a corner, which was a fortunate recovery for him because that would have been a true low light. But that is basically Everton's last shot of the match. From the 76th minute on, it's 3-0 in shots to Wolves, 4-0 in corners. They have 81% possession. And this is also where I think the wheels fall off completely for Everton. In the 76th minute, there's a yellow for the foul on Harrison Armstrong. This one, of all the things that should have been a red card in this match, I don't understand how this is not one of them. It studs into the calf from behind, and then he almost follows through and stomps on his calf. Guys, what is going on here? How is this not a red? How is this not even looked at?
He follows through. He continues the motion. It's not like he pulled out of the thing, unlike the next one we're going to talk about. Relative to the other two, of course it's a red. I don't know. I mean,
yeah, I'm much more upset about this one than the other one. But by
Kavanagh's
far,
on VAR, by the way.
Yeah, and I think that explains the hypocrisy of this this kind of whole sequence, right, with the two VARs and how one's looked at. I mean, for them not to even really kind of give it much mention is just diabolical. We're not playing the big six, right? Like, this is not like, bad check, okay, that should pass through. So it's just, to me, it's as kind of textbook of a red as you see when it comes to stamp on the calf. Like, I don't get it. And it's incredibly frustrating, right? Because I want to stop complaining about, like, PGMOL, and I can give credit to one of these two for sure, red cards, but to not even give that one, I think is pretty bad.
Well, they're not competent. They're not a good leadership group. They make it difficult on their own officials. There's really nothing positive about them whatsoever. They're like the epitome of bad union leadership. But I think what's more important is that they've been going out of their way to sabotage VAR from day one. So I'm not remotely surprised at what happened. And what we have in the 82nd, where the red card happens, it's a play that nothing is called during the match, not even noticed. No one really even makes any comment about it. Okudare gets a little upset about it. That's about it. Referee lets it go like he was letting almost everything else go, including the stomp, like you just mentioned, Sean. And yet magically the VAR pipes up and wants to make it an issue. Is there any doubt in your minds that the VAR called this call? I mean, when he goes to the monitor, there's no chance a junior official like this guy is going to overrule Kavanagh, is he?
No, 100%
Which
not.
defeats the whole point of it, doesn't it?
It's his second Premier League match in charge, and you're being asked to basically push back against a very senior colleague. You're just not going to likely see that. The fact that there's no call on the field, it's not even overturning anything. It's making something out of nothing.
It doesn't make sense. They called it violent conduct. So,
yes.
Look, what happens is Keane goes up in the air, and I think he's trying to grab for his shirt or whatever. Like, he's not staring at his hair and yanking his hair on purpose. He pulls it a little bit, and then he lets go as he goes down. So there's no violent motion here whatsoever. However, it's clearly a challenge on the ball. He's going up for a header, etc. So to me, there's a debate over serious foul play, I guess. I don't think that's remotely close to it. And so serious foul play is a tackle or challenge, that's what this is, that endangers the safety of an opponent or uses excessive force or brutality must be sanctioned as serious foul play. Any player that lunges at an opponent and challenging for the ball from the front, from the side, or from behind, aka the last foul right before that they didn't call one, using one or both legs with excessive force or endangers the safety of an opponent, such as stomping on a calf, is guilty of serious foul play. So here's what I don't understand. They called it violent conduct. You know what violent conduct is?
Off the ball.
Right.
It's
It's
nothing
when
on
not
the ball.
challenging for a ball. Both scenarios, when not challenging for the ball, it's they're using excessive force or brutality, which neither was used anyway. He tugged on his hair a little bit and let go. I mean, this guy's huge. I mean, he could, I don't know if he could pull him down if he tried by his hair. The point is that he's challenging for the ball, which throws violent conduct as an option completely off the table. So, and then there's this wonderful exchange with Dale Johnson. I'll tell you what, Dale Johnson and his little referee thing, talk about a guy who misses the forest through the trees. So, and he constantly hears things that other people have said. Well, they've said they're going to do this. They said they're not. Dude, it's written clear as day in the rules. Clear as day. There's no argument over this unless suddenly we're going to magically change what the concept is of violent conduct. So to his credit, Kieran Jennings responded when Dale Johnson posted this quadrant of violent conduct calls where people got sent off for hair tulling. Every one of these, you've literally got a guy off the ball yanking someone down by their hair, very obviously. The Michael Keane play is nothing like any of them. Not even close. There's nothing remotely similar to this. And so his response is none of the other three are when making challenges for the ball. Violent conduct is when a player uses or attempts to use excessive force or brutality against an opponent when not challenging for the ball. Keane is making a challenge. I just don't know what to say about this. It's wrong. It's just blatantly, objectively incorrect.
You're just inventing. You're just writing stuff into the rules as the game is taking place, applying rules that don't exist to situations that don't apply. It's, a lot of times we have these, and honestly, they can be kind of tiresome, these debates about, well, they're applying this rule to this situation. We don't think that it meets that standard. This is just not even anywhere near anything in the rule book, and yet Michael Keane shown red.
I want to see hear the audio on this, by the way, too, because if it's Chris Kavanagh on the VAR as a senior official that's saying it's violent conduct, I want to hear him say it. Because to me, that's incompetence. The rules are what they are. There's no question about that. If you don't realize he's challenging for the ball and just grabbing for whatever, he's not staring at his hair and pulling him down. Like, you're just an idiot. Like, you don't understand football. And these guys are referees. They clearly understand it well enough. But, like, there's just no way he did that. It's absolutely absurd. Yeah, but this is also the same Chris Kavanagh that sent Ancelotti off because he was upset because he wanted clarification. He was the VAR in the Rodri handball no call. Remember that one? Turned up in the air. Very natural position here, right? Unless you've won the Olympic gold in like 68 or something. I mean, he overturned, remember the Richarlison penalty? Where Lloris maybe barely touched the ball, but clearly just took Richie out. Somehow they managed to overturn that one. Think about that. He went to the monitor and overturned it. Unbelievable.
Just sickening. It's so frustrating.
And it totally changed the game. So, we had at least a chance to win. Now, maybe we lose anyway. But I don't see this as a red card anyway. I mean, it's so strange, man. Is there a counterpoint that I'm missing here, guys? Like, this is one of truly the worst calls I've ever seen.
The only, thing that just frustrates me in all of this is, of all people for this to happen to, it's Michael Keane, because he just somehow, some way finds himself to be in these precarious moments, with it, his arms, out like this. I agree with everything you said, Ryan, in terms of the rule book. There has to be more grounds for it to be a red card. If the rules weren't written and you called that a red card, I could understand it. But the fact is that you classify it as violent conduct makes it incompetence.
Here's the other thing to me, by the way, and this is a suggestion. This guy's 6'6", right? If I'm battling with him, I'm not looking at where I'm putting my hand necessarily. But if he's backing into me, I'm going to jam him. I'll grab him. I'll grab his jersey. I'll throw him down. I'll do whatever I can sometimes. But are you telling me if I try and go up on a guy and I actually catch his hair and pull it down, it's a red card?
I know the Americanization of the Premier League is not everyone's favorite thing, but the hair is part of the uniform. If you want to have long hair, great. That's your right to do. No issue with it. But there is the risk, because it just gets in the way of things, that it might get pulled from time to time.
Now, if you intentionally grab it and yank him down, it's still we know that. But
of course.
That has nothing to do with this.
But this is in the course of making a regular play, a regular challenge. What's interesting is we go down to 10. And Moyes responds with a double sub. We see Barry go off. We talked about Armstrong quite a bit already. We barely mentioned Tierno Barry, and I think that's because he was just such a non-entity in this match. We were not getting the ball forward to him at all. When you talk about Michael Keane had 2 shots and Tierno Barry just could not. He had 1 touch in the box. Just not good service for the striker.
Yeah, well, I think you got one guy on the right side who literally won't pass the ball forward. I mean, the second you give it to Dwight as an outlet, he can't turn. He can't face. There's nothing he can do about it, so that's not helpful. But, Shan, you brought up the point earlier on the pod, we're not looking too often for those guys. And to me, especially, okay, fine, they start pushing up and they need to chase for a goal. That's your time, right? And we've seen Barry had fantastic his last goal. Not his last goal, but the goal before was a great play where he waited, timed the ran, and it took off. And if he's truly not being effective in that role, which I think he was fine today, he did some actually really cool stuff today, even though he barely touched the ball. That back heel flick on the right side was ludicrous. He had 1 decent carry, too, just flubbed kind of. I think he was trying to shoot it, but there was no one there to support him. If he was that poor, then sub him out for Beto, but it just didn't seem like any plan. And that's, I think, was disappointing. But I thought Armstrong was a bright spot, though.
Yeah, I think just the disappointing thing is I think we failed the striker today in just giving him any sort of opportunity. But then also, too, right, you can't execute a press with Dwight McNeil and Jack Grealish and Tierno Barry, right? I think Barry actually,
of course,
his speed, is pretty solid, right? So if you put kind of 2 faster guys, like Tyler Dibling, I think, would certainly so it's just, that's also part of it too. It's when you press and you have those 3 guys, it's Dwight hustles. I'm not talking about his energy. He gives his best effort, but it's kind of failing on 2 ends there.
I'd say Jack is certainly more effective as a presser than Dwight.
He's smart. He's very smart on when to go, so I'll give him that for sure.
Well, let's talk about Jack. I mean, Dwight eventually gets subbed off for Merlin. We won't get to his stats yet. Let's first talk about the drama in the 89th minute. Jack was on tilt this whole time, too. He understood how awful the refereeing had suddenly fallen off into. I'm curious your thoughts on this. He gets fouled. They finally call a foul against Wolves, against him. He jumps up. He kind of gives him a little clap and then continues on. I actually don't think this was anything at all. To me, you could say it's a little bit sarcastic, but they're sarcastic when you're just sitting there and doing the whole thing. I think he did a little bit of this stuff and moved on. To me, this is a rookie move to give him the second yellow for this.
I think it can be both things at once. I think it's really, really kind of immature and naive from Jack Grealish. And honestly, this is one of the things that frustrates me about him is he does too much talking to the referee in general, trying to get calls. Like, he's constantly in the referee's face. I know that he's used to getting a ton of foul calls, so when he doesn't get them, all of a sudden I can see why that's frustrating. And he had been getting hacked quite a bit. But you can't go to referee like that. He looks right at him. He knows what he's doing. He gives him a little cheeky grin and he claps a few times. On the other hand, I also think it's the referee getting caught up in the moment on a big stage in his second Premier League game and being a little quick to card, because I think at this point he'd started to lose control of the game a little bit and wanted to try to reel it in. And I don't think it's a second yellow. I think it's a mistake. But I think Grealish puts him in a position that he doesn't need to put himself in and is punished for it.
I mean, I think this is a situation where he got undone by the dark arts, because this is just a very immature thing. Like, to me, when he got the yellow, I thought it was justified, right? Now, I agree with you, James. I think the ref was completely kind of just lost control of the game. Like, he acknowledged, or the lack of acknowledgement of just missing so many calls and just kind of letting the game state get completely crazy. But for somebody that is kind of one of the senior leaders of this team, you just can't do that. Like, I feel like you also have to understand you're down a man, right? Like, why would you even try to kind of put any sort of push to that ref to make any sort of call, right? And that's what he did. And I mean, to me, it's a second yellow. Like, I just, because I would, if I was the opposition, right, or if that happened to the opposition, I'd kind of want that to happen, right? So it's just, to me, it's just, and also too, it's just kind of, it's so needless. Like, it's just, you got the call, right? Move on, right? Like, let's reset, retool, and it just, to me, it's a very bad moment for Jack, and I just hope it's a situation that doesn't happen again.
I mean, to me, I think Jack's just showing his personality a little bit. I don't even think this is remotely offensive. I don't even know if he was even being that sarcastic. He's like, great job. It's not much at all. It's not a big deal. I don't think any other referee in the Premier League calls this. I think this is Thomas Kirk. He's a mature kid. This is his second refereed match. He already blew it with the other call, and he got bullied by Chris Kavanagh to do it. And I think this gross referee incompetence. I don't think this is really much on Jack at all.
You don't think Kavanagh would call this too?
No,
you said no referee would go.
Okay. No, there's not a single referee in the Premier League would call this a second yellow. Absolutely not. Not even close. They all know Jack. This is nothing compared to what he could do to draw that second yellow. They'd probably look at him, give him a grin, and they'd move on.
I think there is a little bit of like Jack kind of or him trying to get one up on Jack. Like, you think you can kind of bully me around because I'm new here, so here's what I'm going to show you and send you off. So I agree with you that there's that reaction.
That's exactly what happened in my opinion.
That's fair, but I still think Jack doesn't need to put himself in that situation, and I strongly disagree that it wasn't sarcastic. It was, to me,
it was a little bit.
It was very sarcastic.
It was very sarcastic.
He does. It's like just a couple little claps. Like, if you really wanted to be obnoxious about this, and let's
no,
be honest,
it was like this. Like, yeah,
he was charitable. Jack Grealish.
Like, do I defend Jack Grealish either? No,
that's why it's so out of character.
Nah, I don't see it that way.
He defended Tim earlier. I think it's opposite.
I don't think it's a big deal. I actually don't think, if he's not on his second yellow, I don't think it's a first yellow. Not at all.
I think it's
second.
I think it's an obvious first yellow, but we digress. We can move on.
Don't think so. But what I do think is that Dwight McNeil's defensive numbers yet again were absolutely atrocious. He's an absolute ghost on defense. I don't understand why David Moyes thinks. So what is the merit of playing this guy? Left-footed set pieces. I cannot think of another single reason why you'd play him better than ahead of Tyler Dibling. Tyler Dibling is a better player than this guy across the board. At least Dibling, okay, he gets dribbled by a couple times. At least he shows more. It's not that he shows more effort, but he's not glacially slow. So to me, I mean, Dwight literally 1 shot, 1 for 2 in dribbles, 4 defensive contributions, 4, 1 tackle, 1 recovery, 2 clearances. That's it. That to me is absolutely pathetic. He's done this now for how long? Like, seriously, Ghana gets more tackles in a single match than this guy gets in like half a season. What is going on here? He was not like this before with Dyche. And maybe it's he's playing higher or whatnot. Maybe he's playing out of position. I guess I critique Moyes for playing other people out of position, but there's absolutely no reason for this guy to play. It was bad enough when he played him as a 10 last time. He's not a right wing either. This guy needs to be moved on. And he's not doing himself any favors with some of these performances, that's for freaking sure. I just, those defensive numbers to me are inexcusable, guys. You make some bad decisions in attack, fine, whatever. But that is not, I mean, you got Jake O'Brien basically playing shorthanded back there.
And that's a player you don't need to expose to any more pressure.
No.
He's already playing out of position. I mean, I think Dwight, Merlin on, it is what it is. The thing that Dwight does that it's just hilarious is like he makes those really pointless runs. He made like a 70-yard run forward when Saw had about 45 seconds to play the ball.
They're laughing at him when he does that.
It's like, what, like that? Oh, that's hustle. He's fighting. It's like, that's just a waste of energy. Let's be more efficient here. And then it's ultimately Wolves who almost escape with all 3 points because Pickford comes up with an unbelievable save on Hugo Bueno. This is a great hit. It's a .03 XG shot that he turns into nearly half an expected goal on target with a really nice curler. I still am kind of amazed that Pickford was able to get into the corner to tip this one over. And again, that's really the last major opportunity of the game, and it finishes all Wolves, Everton down to 9. But they were lumping it in the box. They were looking for any opportunity to get one into the back of the net, get the winner, and it was only ever really going to go one way. So in that respect, you almost have to be a little bit thankful that we escaped with a point.
A point against Wolves is never a bad thing, right, Sean? I think in this instance, by the way, and I've said this so many times on the pod, like Pickford maybe doesn't have the range and the extension as some of these other guys, but my Lord, is there a guy who has stronger hands? It's unbelievable. I mean, he barely touches the ball with the fingers, which most, like, it would snap my fingers in half, and I'm not the smallest guy. And him, it's like, bink. It's unbelievable, man. He needs
just
to
great
master
technique as well. Like, I mean, you know, it's just like the
he gets everything out of his body.
Yeah,
doesn't he,
like,
Sean?
you know, just the diagonal way he's diving as well. Like, you just, there's a reason why the announcers were like, that might be the save of the month. And it's just, of course, it's like hearsay, but in real time, you see that. And of course, on replays, it's an incredible save. And, you know, very happy for Jordan, very happy. You lose that game 2-1, I think the wheels kind of fall off across the board if they didn't in terms of just the, you know, conversation. But I think at 1-1, you at least just say, you know, didn't completely just explode, but it's just still a situation that really, you know, you kind of have to look at some things and reevaluate.
Yeah, it is weird, though. You get to the end of this one and you think, geez, what the heck could have been, you know? I mean, especially in the first half where you think maybe we could have, I mean, Michael Keane hits the post there. That goes in. Maybe this thing's very different. The second half numbers are obviously a little bit skewed because of being down players, but I just don't feel like we were really ever at the races. There certainly didn't seem to be a lot of, even when we were on the ball a bit, there wasn't a great rhythm about it. There didn't seem to be maybe as much purpose as we would have liked. And we almost were like them a little bit in the second half where we'd get to a certain point in the pitch. We just could not quite break through. And I think the second half numbers indicate that.
Yeah, it's almost a complete reversal of the first half where Everton created basically nothing, 0.17 XG, whereas Wolves created 0.61. Only half of that from open play, the other half roughly coming from set plays. Again, part of it is skewed because of the sendings off, but they still had a fair amount of opportunities before those sendings off, and ultimately those didn't impact the final result, so you have to kind of judge it on what was done at even strength. I just don't think Everton were really ever close to getting the winner here, unfortunately. And as a result, you look at the good performances. I thought Tim in particular was outstanding in the first half. He had 4 tackles in the first half. He finished with 5. He kind of wore out as the game went on. His relentlessness trying to drive the ball forward was really impressive in the first half and then became a little bit tiresome in the second half when he refused to release the ball to certain people and just got a little bit too aggressive and greedy, I think. Otherwise, I mean, Armstrong was a bright spot but didn't exactly light things up from a numbers standpoint. And hard to pick too many other good performances within the team.
I mean, Pickford with the save, that was a big difference.
Yeah.
That's it. But I mean, look, lots of listener comments on this one. A lot of people were frustrated about it. I understand some of the frustration. I like this stuff by Z right here. I guess we'll just go with Z at this point. We've already had discussion on the Discord on how to pronounce this, but you know, is this lineup really Dyche-esque kind of? I'm curious what you guys think about this.
So the comment is, limited squad, I get it, but starting lineup was Dyche-esque, playing for a draw, then poor game management by Moyes to seal the game up and continue to play defensive, gets the result. Further poor management in addressing a heated Grealish on a yellow. Hard on Moyes, but I'm struggling lately to understand what we are doing, especially at home. We have to expect more, especially when there are tools to put to use. One more step in the Moyes out camp for me. Thoughts? I think the Moyes out stuff is a little extreme, but I think the other stuff has a little bit of merit. I don't agree necessarily with Dyche-esque. The only similarity I see is that also a pretty thin squad. personnel-wise to choose from. But the management, the refusal and stubbornness to make changes within the game, proactive changes, is kind of a recurring theme of, I guess, I don't know if you'd even call it old school, but just this persistence with setting the team up and not wanting to disrupt things, to destabilize things, and viewing that as better than the options that you have available on the bench.
I mean, it's not digest because Jake was playing. So, yeah, I mean, no, but in all seriousness, I think it's just frustration, right? Because you talk about the two Burnley guys, Dwight and Tark. I mean, Moyes has no loyalty to these players, and they continue to just kind of, take airspace within the field. And so that, to me, of just the lack of using some of these guys that, we can't use the excuse we don't have a bench, right? Like Tyler Dibling is there, right? You see, like the Armstrong inclusion, I appreciate, and I don't think that's something Dyche would have done, right? So it's just like, you give credit to Moyes there, but I think it's just frustration because the Dibling Dwight thing to me is just makes zero sense whatsoever. You bring a right winger here that is clearly better than the player that's playing in front of him. And he's not even, it's one thing if you wanted to say, okay, we're saving him for the cup match, let's just give him 20 minutes. For him to not even see the field today when we have 11 men, I think is where I have, pretty strong issue with it.
I think the back line just doesn't work. And I think that's limits us so much. And I think here was an opportunity to play Jake down the middle, maybe change some things up, and he just didn't seem interested in doing it. I feel some of the frustration here too, because it's very natural to watch this and kind of ask yourself, well, what's the plan? And look, David Moyes is not Sean Dyche in this regard. Like we saw what happened when they were playing against us at Everton. Sean Dyche has no plan, no designed attack in the final third when they're down. Like with the ball in the final third, he has no play design at all. He doesn't. And he pretty much admits that. Moyes has the ability to do some of those things, but today I just don't know what choices he really made. They didn't go out there with kind of an idea. So they played defensive, not really played defensive, really, because we're on the ball at times. But when we're on the ball, what were we doing with it? And again, but look, I mean, Yinzer Toffee makes a good point here. I mean, we're not good. We all knew we weren't good. Got to buy players and set up for next season. Right now, with the players that we have available, it's not a stacked side. So I think we got to expect some levels of inconsistency. But I do think it is fair to ask a question like, what is the game plan at times? But are we having too high of expectations for these teams? I guess then you look at the team we're playing. I mean, does that Wolves team have any less talent than we put on the pitch today? That's a fair question. I mean, they're your favorite team, Sean, so I know you're going to say no. But, I'm curious what your thoughts are. Like, if you start going man-to-man there, I mean, Wolves have some talent.
They do.
They do. I would say that if you just looked at that 11 versus our 11, the way it's placed, I would say yes. But, you put Jake at center back, he clears any of their center backs by a landslide, right? But if you...
A mile.
If you looked at Tark, you disagree. I think their wing backs are weak. I think our wing backs are weak, right? So it then becomes to the midfield, right, where it's just... I think you have some guys... from a development standpoint, like Tim, Harrison Armstrong, and whatnot, that can be, but they have some more of the end product, right? And then you look at the forward, and I think it's not a wash per se, but it's not like a mile, in regards to, because Tolu's pretty decent. So it's just, but it kind of goes to show you, right? We're not, the talent level isn't where we're missing guys, right? Where to them they're not really missing. So what's on the field? Yeah, right. It's not a good squad right now. So
I think center backs and goalie, we got these guys by a mile.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, goalkeeper, it's like a mile.
You can say they're weak kind of on wing back, but I would take both of those guys ahead of our fullbacks.
100%. Yeah, I would too.
I mean, Chachua, right. My God, do we have anyone even remotely close to him speed-wise? Can you imagine what sort of damage a player like that could be that's direct and athletic for us? Even if you're just down to throw him on at right back and morph into a 3 with Mikalenko being defensive.
And you put Jake on his side as right, it's just 100%.
Carry the ball over and feed him as fast as he is and his recovery pace as well. It's not like he's a terrible defender for a wingback. Maybe he's not the greatest defender for a fullback. But yeah, I mean, it's just, and actually I would say that Rob Edwards did a good job using the options he had at his disposal. I mean, when you're not familiar against playing with the formation like this, he did change some stuff up on how people were moving around in the pitch and stuff. It wasn't the easiest tactical system to set up and do well against, and we did do well against it in the first half, but Yeah, the second half was just really, really disappointing, and maybe we are overrating the level of talent. I still have some issues, though, with if Moyes is really committed to playing youth. And look, we've talked about the McNeil and Dibling thing. You got to give him credit for playing Harrison Armstrong, too. I just don't understand what they're thinking with respect to Dwight McNeil. If Dwight McNeil was playing left wing, maybe.
We've been asking the question all season, like, why isn't Dibling playing? We've not been asking the question, why isn't Dwight McNeil playing? And now one of them's playing, one of them isn't. One of them has a future at Everton. What is the plan? Now he's going to be forced into playing Jake O'Brien at center back.
Thank God.
Which is great.
Yeah.
It's the positive of seeing Keane benched. I don't know how we're going to score without Keane, but that's a totally different topic. Merlin barely got a few minutes today. We bring back Armstrong. I know we're thin. Really kind of, for me, hinges on what happens with Armstrong at the end of the month. Him starting today was a shock. Kind of makes me think that Moyes keep Armstrong for the rest of the season. And then you've got this guy who is also still on loan, technically, with an obligation at the end of the season. I don't really know what you do with him. Once we get back to full strength, neither of these guys, I think, are going to have a ton of opportunities to see the field.
I just find it hard to believe that you put a guy like Dwight McNeil on the pitch and somehow, like, Dibling, Merlin, I don't care who it is, like, these guys can't find a way on. I don't know, man. It's very, very upsetting to me. And the center back, I really think a lot of these problems stem from that center back pairing and that back line. We are so predictable there and so easy to play against because it's just static. And there's no threat to do anything from the fullback. People can pressure us when they need us to. We'll turn the ball over and they can turn it around. I don't even think Wolves did a great job with that. They chose to try and keep the ball in attack. They didn't do that well with it. But in the second half, eventually it became undone. And we became undone partially because Jake O'Brien's playing right back. This time it was a defensive thing, too, and it may be a little uncharacteristic, but disappointing either way. You know, you're not going to be as adaptable, frankly, if you're still playing out of position. You could argue, well, he's played long enough to be playing in position. Well, just a couple games ago, he played in his proper position and was man of the match. I don't know. Very disappointing to me.
Well, to put all that in perspective, I do want to take a step back and just talk about where we are. We talked about us not being very good, and I guess I counter that with saying I think we're just extremely, extremely average. And I can't think of a better number to drive that home than our home and away records this season. 4 wins and 4 losses, both home and away, with 3 draws at home and 2 losses away. It's just the ups and downs. We win a couple, we lose to Brentford, followed by this really disappointing match, which I think just becomes so much more dramatic and frustrating because of the red cards, but then the second half performance as well. If you to use an Americanism here, I mean, we're basically a 500 ball club. We're about a 500 team. We're going to win about as many as we lose as the season goes on. And you think about how thin the team's been since Ghana and NJ left for AFCON. We've taken 5 points from a possible 12. So again, just about half the points available. And that's, again, with the addition of Dewsbury Hall. Going to have to cope with some additional absences. So no, we're not great, but I also don't think the sky is falling and that we're that horrendous either. I think the real question is there's some things that are available to us with the existing personnel, I think, that can be done to make the team better. And will Moyes do them? I also we have to allude to the 9th and 15th, the famous Ryan comment from Mike on our Discord. We are now in 12th, which is perfectly equidistant between 9th and 15th. So things going exactly according to maybe not Everton's plan, but our predictions starting the year.
And look, you know, I continue to take solace in the Everton Happy Sad Reversible Critter Ball soft toy. So when I look at the table, I'm not that sad necessarily. I'm sad in the fact that I want to see younger players play more. I was happy to see Harrison Armstrong. But today was a sad day, I guess. But we did get a point. So, I mean, it's not... Look, one thing to take credit for, and David Moyes, I think, continues to deserve this, whether it's the character of the players inherently or not, or it's David Moyes. These guys do play hard. I mean, it's not that. And they did show some character today, hanging on for the draw. That was a lot of adversity to deal with. I think a lot of it was undeserved. So I'm not here to trash David Moyes. I still have questions whether he's the right guy kind of in the phase of where we are as a club to kind of be right now. But I don't think he's a bad manager. He may not be a super tactico, but he is a good man manager. He has a lot of character, and the guy's a class act. So to me, he deserves credit for that. And still, hey, we did get a point out of this, even if it's disappointing.
Yeah, I don't prescribe in any way, shape, or form to the Moyes out kind of, brigade. I think it's underappreciated, the job he does. I know we criticize him quite a bit, but it's just truly from a tactical sense. It's not from a squad sense. It's not from a leadership sense. And he does a lot of things right. So, we want to kind of make sure when we're kind of talking about him rationally, that these things are kind of understood. We need to get away from this win Europe, lost relegation kind of thought process that goes within our brains. We didn't even lose today, which is the crazy part, right? But I understand the disappointment, so I get it.
I think you're just happy because you respect Wolves so much that... No, in all seriousness, though, I do think the fair concern, though, with Moyes, to me, is that, look, we need to make big recruitment this window, and I think this summer is going to be massive in terms of, vaulting ourselves up the table and increasing the talent of this team. So is David Moyes interested? I just firmly believe there's a way you can build this team in order to get to where we want him to be, and I just don't know if he's the right guy to do that. And I'm not saying Moyes out, fire him or anything like that right away, but... do you keep him in after this year in the summer? I don't know. And if that's the case, you just start backing it up to say, when do you maybe make a change and get someone in that's maybe a little different type of character to get used to these players? I don't know. I think it's an interesting thing. But no, not Moyes out. I mean, that's just kind of... certainly the performances themselves do not merit a David Moyes out. That's ludicrous. Maybe there's some more strategic reasons why you might be slightly concerned about him and his fit in the club. But frankly, and this leads us a little bit into thoughts and prayers, Shan, and I'll hand it over to you, but I've got more concerns about the structure of this football club that would enable David Moyes to perhaps have as much influence as maybe he should or should not have. And that falls on Angus Kinnear.
Yeah, no doubt. And I know Ambient Angus has gotten quite the criticisms as of late, just not only from Everton, but Leeds, right? Because Brendan Aronson is on fire. Dominic Calvert-Lewin is on fire. And so credit to Leeds. I know it was a tough loss today, but they are entertaining, so I will give them that. And they're
maybe
giving
Victor
it their best
wasn't all that bad, Angus. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Manchester United, I think, once again, they have joined this kind of wheel of fortune when it comes to manager carousel. And so Ruben Amorim has been sacked. Darren Fletcher got a brilliant 2-2 draw today at Burnley. So we have joined Manchester United. We are brothers in arms when it comes to getting draws at home against Wolves and draws on the road against Burnley. So, not really hoping for the great things to happen to United, but it's just another example of just kind of ineptitude there. But I think the last one is the most important, and it's from one of my favorite people in the world, Alan Myers. And this is a strong statement. You want to talk about a club statement. This would kind of embody that, and I think it's a perfect way to lead this off. Is Alan Myers at Alan Myers Media said, "I've said it before and I will keep saying it. Whoever's in charge of the traffic management around the stadium needs to be paraded in front of the liver buildings for all of us to boo." I've never I've watched some of these movies, like Taken by Liam Neeson. I would not want to be that guy that Alan Myers is searching for. So whoever you are, you better watch out because Alan is coming. So
you're gonna get booed.
Yeah,
Watch your
you're
six.
not. Yeah. You saw what he's done to Barclays Bank and just the 30-year relationship he had with that bank. So just be warned, whoever this person is that's in charge of traffic management. We care about people in the pod, so we just want to make sure that this individual gets it right because this is a massive concern. So score predictions, there's 3: Sunnut, TJ Biro, and ABM. Lastly, our upcoming pod, of course, games are thick and fast, right? And this ends, I think it's 3 or 4 games in a matter of how many days, guys? It's been a lot. But upcoming pod, Sunderland, FA Cup, early kickoff. Hope to see some of these guys like Tyler Dibling play. We don't have enough bodies, so it would truly be a catastrophe doesn't. But any final words after
this? Take the cup seriously. I would have taken it more seriously than this match. Although I'm not so sure how seriously we took it this match either. We have some of the strangest sending offs. We got a sending off for an accidental hair pull on a misinterpretation of a rule. We have one of our own players slapping the other, and we have Jack Grealish getting sent off for applauding a referee.
And don't forget a yellow for impersonating a seagull. Don't forget.
Ryan, as long as Everton take it more seriously than Thomas Frank took the cup seriously today, drinking out of that Arsenal cup, then I would be happy with that. So
unbelievable stuff. Unbelievable scenes. All right, I think that's a good note to end on. Thank you all for tuning into this episode. Appreciate you all. One last plug. Subscribe to the channel if you enjoy it. If you're listening, leave us a rating and review on your podcast platform of choice. Check out our other episodes. Definitely check out our January episode that we released last week, which covers a ton of different targets, what Everton might do. Looking like business is more unlikely than likely per David Moyes, but if we are to dip our toe into the market, we have a bunch of names we went over that we think could help the team. So check it out. Otherwise, until next time, up the Toffees.